Principal Matters Podcast, episode 465. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the school leaders podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. This week, I'm talking to my special guest, Derek Cantrell, about Better Together. Derek is the principal of Alleghany High School in Covington, Virginia, where he led a merger of two rival schools into a unified school community. Instead of allowing division to define the transition, he focused on building culture first, ensuring students, staff, and the community had a voice in shaping a new identity under a Better Together philosophy. Beyond fostering a strong school culture, he's also known for leveraging AI to enhance leadership and instruction. He's developed AI-driven tools to streamline administrative workflows, support teachers, and uses Julius AI to help analyze state testing data to drive student achievement. By blending relationship-centered leadership and innovation, Derek's proving that schools can honor their past while embracing their future. Derek Cantrell, welcome to Principal Matters Podcast. Why don't you fill in the gaps on that intro and tell listeners something else they may be surprised to know about you?
Awesome. Excited for the opportunity to talk to you, and thank you for all that you do. Well, I come from a family of educators. My mom was a pre-K junior kindergarten teacher for 30 plus years. My uncle, who helped raise me, was a shop teacher who then transitioned to an assistant principal at a technical center and finished as a principal there. My wife is currently a nursing instructor at our technical center. My daughter is a senior, getting ready to graduate on May 30th at Alleghany High School, and plans to study criminal psychology and play softball at Roanoke College. And my son's a seventh grader at the middle school. Huge Seinfeld fan. I probably could quote half the episodes if you went through that. And we're also big Disney nerds. We are DVC members. We go to DVC places throughout the country. I've been to Paris at Euro Disney a couple times as well. So anything Disney related, we're also pretty excited about. So that's a couple cool things, I think.
So I love that. You're an education family. You've got your kids right there so close. Alleghany and, well, Covington, Virginia. What is the closest nearby big town or city?
I think you would think Roanoke, Virginia. If you've ever heard of the Greenbrier Resort, it's about 30, 40 minutes from Covington. So that's a couple landmarks that you might be able to recognize.
Yeah, not everybody knows, but when I was in high school, my dad was reenlisted in the Navy. So we actually lived in Norfolk, Virginia for a while. So we would drive from West Tennessee, where my mom and dad's farm still is today, across that state through Virginia. And man, I tell you, you Virginians are like, well, like you should be. You claim it's God's country, they're in Virginia, but it is a very beautiful state, Derek. I wanted to bring you into this conversation. You're a longtime listener. You are a veteran leader. You've been at the school you're at now for the last 2 years, but for 7 years, you led Covington High School. And you reached out to me just because of the unique story of what happened when your schools merged. And I was so excited to just introduce you to listeners because of that, the legacy that you're building now in merging two communities together. But before we go there, can you tell us just more about the high school you're currently serving and what are some of the outcomes that you're most proud of?
Well, currently at Alleghany, it's our second year of consolidation. So we've currently been at this building for 2 years, merging Covington City students and staff with the Alleghany students and staff as well. That process was pretty exciting, and we tried to lay kind of a cultural framework up front and a roadmap of some things we wanted to do along the way so that we involve people in that process. So when we started the first day of school, that kids were excited to be here. We celebrated those small wins along the way because we knew it was something when you're taking Covington High School that's been there since 1929, a staple of your community. Alleghany High School has their traditions. And like I told you a little bit ago, I graduated from Alleghany High School, was a student here, taught here, coached here before transitioning to the principal at Covington High School. So it's been a pretty great honor and privilege to serve our community in both aspects and lead this process at the high school level. And the first year just coming in and seeing the people excited, wearing the gear, the grip that they were given throughout the summer and the start of the year. Our teachers, I always tell people, I really felt really cool walking down our second floor early in the fall of our first year, and our whole floor eats lunch together. The math teachers, science, special ed teachers that are up there, they're all in one room. And if you know high school folks, that's not normally the case.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see. And it took a couple weeks, and it just felt like it was a regular school. That people got along, and you saw smiles on people's faces. But we were really excited to be able to offer more opportunities for kids, whether it be honors classes, dual enrollment, more electives within their core areas. Our sports teams knocked it out of the park. We've been district champions several times in multiple sports. We had an undefeated football season this past year. And I really think that culture piece, our sports team started practicing in the fall, probably the spring and summer before the school year started. And those relationships that they built really helped as we started our school year. So that was really exciting to see as well.
I love that. So let's back up, because some listeners are in communities where they understand like what the experience of having a rival high school is like. Some people may work or live in communities where they've never had that experience of imagining what it's like to merge two schools that have historically competed. And when you live that close in proximity, I mean, there's a lot of pride involved in who you are and your identity that's involved. And two different mascots. So back us up a little bit. I'm just curious, like, let's go a year or however long it took before then. How far in advance were you guys able to start imagining those transitions? And how did you work through some of those difficult questions like identity and logo and mascots and things like that?
No, it definitely, along that journey, traditions become, a vocal point. And that's one of those areas that people have strong feelings about. And how do you keep those traditions while also merging new things? The process, both school division school boards voted on it, I want to think in 2021, so that it was approved. We were a consolidated division 1 year before the high schools came together in the fall of 23. So the first year of consolidation, we were still Covington and Alleghany High School within there. I mean, like you said, we played for the Brackman Cup in football. The whole community's there with their, the Mountaineer gear for Alleghany, the Covington Cougars as well. But that process, almost probably a 2-year process of getting there for sure. The kids were able to vote for colors. We changed our colors to the Navy and Carolina. We did keep the Cougar mascot from Covington. We did redesign it. We had input from varsity sports, I believe, that helped kind of design our logos and all that different aspects as well. And the groups met and worked together to kind of fit that in, and worked on what facilities we would utilize to play. So there was a lot of things that went there. And one of the neat things we tried to do throughout that process was celebrate all the steps along the way. When we had the news come in when we unveiled the mascot and the logos and the colors, and had the kids a part of that process. And I think we had a band uniform that we had ready at that point as a demo to show that off. Throughout the summer, as we painted the school, painted the lockers, and put logos on the front door, we took pictures and put them on Facebook and social media just to celebrate the small steps and just keep that excitement rolling. And some of the things that I thought was important, it was how do you get people to feel comfortable about the transition? I was hired in October before the school year started, but still working in my current position at Covington High School. And then I was able to get assistant principals in February. So then I had a team. So it was a little bit of time working with division leadership on the process of staff and how that would work and hiring people for the roles that were already there. Our division did a great job of having events and activities they called mingle sessions, where all secondary folks got to a PD afternoon. They fed us. We did some team building activities, got to tour Alleghany High School and Covington, because Covington is where the current middle school is. So teachers could go into rooms and talk to people, how does the furniture work, the computer stuff, and just answer some of those questions that people get worried about. But as we move forward, getting the kids down here from Covington was a thing we wanted to do. We had our leadership team from the kids come down and shadow Allegany's leadership students for a day, come back and talk to our students at Covington. Then they wanted to have some evenings where their parents could come in and just tour the school with nobody here. So we offered that. The AHS leadership kids came and gave those tours. We gave away T-shirts and stickers that they could put on their cars throughout that, just anything we could to, sell our product and our brand for sure and make people feel comfortable. So many different events throughout that time. And summer, we had summer fun activity nights, movie nights, game nights, fed people shirts, drawings, and all that. Just could we build relationships along the way before it started? And the more we could do that outreach and get people in, we felt that would help us at the start.
All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop, Derek, and just talk to listeners for a minute, because what you just described is such, I think, a strong description of culture building. I mean, I may be listening to this and thinking, well, I'm not consolidating schools. So, I mean, that's a great story, Derek. But I'm just thinking about all of the intention that was involved in identifying in advance, what do we need to do to build pride in the people that are going to be calling this their community? So even if you're not consolidating schools, when is the last time, and I'm speaking to listeners, you've thought about your mascots, your colors, your repainting of areas, the branding of your school, how to invite people in advance for mingling sessions and school tours and handing out T-shirts and stickers and having those fun community nights and those movie nights and feeding people, because all those things are just culture building, Derek. Feel free to add to that, but I do have a follow-up question too, and this is more kind of operational.
Mhm.
I'm also curious, like, how were you guys able to manage that with staff? Because I'm sure there had to be reassignments. I'm sure there had to be in admin restructuring. So talk a little bit about what that looked like too, because that's the culture side. But on the other end, you're doing a lot of operational work too.
That might have been the craziest part of the whole thing, is how do you move we had 3 buildings essentially that went to 2. So we had Covington High School, Alleghany High School, and Clifton Middle School. So the staffing piece, we tried to honor people's first choice. If you had too many people in one section, we had to make some decisions with where they would best fit to manage the school and make sure class sizes fit. But once we got that part figured out as a division, getting the furniture and the stuff to the different rooms was an enormous undertaking. I remember at Covington High School, the last couple of days we were there, the majority of folks at that building came here. There was a few that stayed at the middle school, but we had to box up everything in their rooms, set it outside their rooms. We had a moving company that moved everything here. Then everything from the middle school went to the high school at Covington. So I mean, it's a miracle it all happened, because it was kind of crazy to walk through the cafeteria in the summer at Covington and see boxes 8-10 levels high and room numbers, and it was a lot of moving parts, as I like to say, with that. And the school division did a great job of making that transition work, getting people in, getting things painted, making it fresh and new, making those colors that in both buildings that had to be adjusted. So when kids came in, it felt like a new atmosphere. So from the maintenance part, the moving the furniture part, to painting, it was a huge undertaking, and wild that we were able to get it done and start school right around Labor Day or so, to be honest.
That's amazing. What did it end up doing in terms of administrative structure? Because you've got a team now. So I'm just curious what that looked like and when you guys went from, the start of that consolidating three down to two.
We leadership positions were open, so you had to go through a interview process for basically there was a middle school, high school, and technical center because the technical center principal retired. So there was three openings, and it was open for pretty much anyone throughout the division. So there was unknown of where you would be. So you kind of interviewed for the different spots that you would like, and at that time I was okay with any of them that would come available for sure. And once those people were selected, it was a good bit of time before the assistant principals came on board. So you kind of went through a period of unknown of kind of creating that cultural roadmap by yourself with the division, but not having your admin team at the school level. So once those folks got in place, you could kind of hit the ground running, have your department meetings, start having those weekly or twice a month memos of here's what we're doing, here's how we're making scheduling work, here's things we're going to be doing this summer, here's how we're working on hiring the other assistant principal. Keeping people in that communication loop we thought was huge, and we worked hard to do that throughout the process so people knew where we're at, what we're doing, and how we're moving forward.
Wow. So if I'm understanding you correctly, while you guys were um, planning all of this in advance, you were chosen for that new role in October, the year before that new school year started.
Right.
And so you're already anticipating what this is going to look like as you're looking forward. And then you had the summer to make all the moves take place. And then, but by that spring, you've already identified your assistant principals too. So when you guys stepped in, man, you're on the ground running, in terms of what that new school looks like. So how many students are you currently serving now at the high school, and who else is on your team?
Well, we have about 825, so we're a 9 through 12 high school. Covington was unique. It was an 8 through 12 high school. So we had eighth graders there. So I've had the luxury of having my daughter for 5 years. So I think she's about ready to go to college and get away from me to a point.
Yeah.
But so that was unique. Our leadership team, we have Charity Hale, who's an assistant principal. She taught at Covington High School for a long time and was our athletic director. Right before the school merger, she came to Alleghany as the AD and then transitioned to an assistant principal role. So that was great to have her here, and she had been with the kids at this building, so that was a huge impact to know those faces and that part. The assistant principal that I had at Covington High School at the time, Chris Jones, was going to be an AP here, but then he got a position at the elementary school. So I was really excited for him to have that opportunity to leave and go. So we were able to hire two new folks. One had been a teacher in Alleghany and a principal in Bath County. So it was great to bring in someone that had been a principal away and have some perspective, is Jennifer Rather. And then we were also able to pick up Timothy Cochran, who was a CTE administrator and had been an administrator in some other divisions away from Alleghany, and actually had went through a consolidation process of his own. So that was kind of really nice to have. And we've sadly, Mr. Cochran passed away this year in February, and it was kind of a devastating hit to us. And we've been trying to work through that as an administrative team and a little bit shorthanded. And he brought a lot of great ideas. And I know when we interviewed him, it was just like, we want him to be a part of this because he worked well with people, communicated well with kids, and could have those disciplinary discussions. And when the kid leaves, they know that he felt their best interest and wanted them to be successful. So that's definitely been a challenge this year for us.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and kudos to you and your team. And I'm sorry for your loss too. We've talked about the structural moves. We've talked about some of the culture, the branding, your staff transitions too. But something else I wanted to talk to you about, Derek, and I mentioned this in the intro, is now that you guys are on, in place, and you've you've been able to stay unified with this new identity. You've also, now that you're doing school, you've also been trying to figure out, okay, as a community that now has this, I mean, and let's face it, small towns with schools, the entire community's identity revolves around that school.
Right.
And so that's also a beautiful thing because you show up every single day knowing that this is the place where people want to belong and we're going to keep that culture thriving. But you also are there for the task of learning and achievement and academic growth. And this is where you've been really focusing, it sounds like, the last couple of years as well, in how to leverage AI
Mhm.
in terms of the systems and the data. So, talk to us a little bit about how AI has been enhancing your work as an administrator.
Well, I always like to go to VISTI, which is kind of our technology conference each year, and that's something that's always been, even when I was teaching, interests me with instructional technology. So a few years ago, I went through a session on ChatGPT and learned how to create bots and the kind of the backside of it, which is kind of amazing. If you haven't played around with that, there's a lot of neat things you can do by creating your own chatbots. You can put in your own information, your own documents, and that'll save that as knowledge and be able to do any kind of task that you can kind of think of a lot more efficiently, whether it be alignment checks for administrators, for lesson plans, lesson plan reviews, feedback, and a lot of different things there that help with that task, day-to-day task. One of the neat things with Julius that I've played around with, if nobody's ever used that, it's really great at data analysis, and we'll do a lot better job at getting deeper. So yes, one day I tried to decide, like, how can I take all of our question by detail reports from standardized tests at the end of the year, so 80,000 question strands, and break that down to where it's actionable data for teachers that they could utilize, because that's the hard part. You spend all this time, how do we utilize it and how does it make change? So with that, I was able to give our teachers, here were all the question strands, the level, whether it was high, medium, or low, how many questions we got right, wrong, and then what was our top 5, bottom 5 areas. And then to take it further, worked on a chat bot to kind of, here's our weak areas, what are things that we can do to ensure we hit those within instruction and enhance our engagement, real world, and relevance within that, so that students will get those areas that we struggled with as a whole. But we could create within that bot as well practice problems that teachers could give kids that are at the higher and medium level, so that if they practice with that bar up a little bit more than where they're going to be, hopefully we'll continue to see some success with that. So that was really cool to be able to take something that big and be able to give it to them that they could actually implement and utilize within their classroom. And I remember talking with our admin team, and they're like, it's wild that you're able to do that and make that actionable for people and utilize it pretty easily.
That's amazing. So for admins out there who have played around with AI or ChatGPT or Julius or Claude, um, that's one example. Talk a little bit about how you've also utilized it for affecting your own workflows and supporting teachers.
Yeah, it does a great job, for the things that eat up our time, that you can tweak. I always like to think as well, the more you put into the chat bot, the more that you put into your communication with the prompting, the more it comes out with what you're asking it to do. So follow-up questions, I think, are huge. We've created some admin chat bots that we share within the group that, like I say, help with alignment checks, lesson plan reviews, walkthroughs, where we can go into a walkthrough and take notes of what we actually see and specifics, actionable things, come back, run it through our chat bot, and give feedback that's not as biased. It's more, tailored to what we want it to be based upon the knowledge that's in that bot. And we've had some trainings this year with Strong and Associates that really focused on, how to make that tighter for our group, but also make it actionable for things that teachers can do to help grow. So that's been really cool to go through that process as a group and a team, and kind of see that when we walk out of there with our notes, that the feedback that we give is pretty consistent when it runs through our chat bot.
What a powerful way to be using AI. I'll just give a quick shout out to someone that you would probably be great friends with, Derek, but John Boyd, who's the principal of St. Genevieve High School in Missouri. He was a state principal of the year. We were on a call just a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that, man, he has tried to just think through every process that they use, running attendance, trying to identify which students are struggling the most with grades. And he's been learning how to build using ChatGPT code so that he can run it through Google Forms. And he said, well, we had a 20-minute process that we can now do in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that to leaders who may be intimidated by the technology, but with leaders like you who are trying to figure out, okay, how do we leverage this in a way that's going to streamline the work that we're doing or make it faster, not replace humans, but at least save us time so that some of those things that are really important to us, understanding what's going on with our student data, understanding what's going on with student performance, understanding what's going on in learning, that we can enhance that work together too. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would think that one other thing we've done is some PD with teachers, trying to get them to be open to how it can help them within their process as well. One of the couple of things that I think it does a great job is some of those classrooms, how do you make things real world and relevant? And you can easily just put in your lesson plan that you're doing and give us an idea or an activity that makes this real world relevant and engaging. And there's some great ideas with projects and activities that can come that, as we've talked before, it could take weeks and reading books and processes in the old days within that to come up with those. And it's there with a snap of the fingers nowadays. And I think creativity, there's no excuse kind of for not being creative anymore, because it's right there and you get stuck. You can ask ChatGPT, Claude, or the different bots that are there, because it can really enhance your process. It can help with special education, with scaffolding and processes. So it's really impactful what you can do, and it's kind of unlimited, and we're just scratching the surface, I think.
I love it. I was talking to a friend last night who's a business owner, and he was telling me that, he's got a staff of about 10. And they've made a commitment that when they create newsletters, when they shout information, that it's going to be stuff they've written themselves. But he'll run it through ChatGPT to just say, am I missing something here, or do I need clarity? Or is there any way you might reword a sentence that might help me? And based on that feedback, sometimes he'll catch himself going, oh, that wasn't very clear. Or this could be, I could redo this. And so he's kept the commitment to the ethics of, this is me you're hearing from, but I'm going to use this tool to enhance my thinking in ways that I've never been able to do before too. I love this because, Derek, we said this in the introduction, but here you are in a school that's taken two legacy school cultures. You've combined them together, which has taken an amazing amount of work. So you're honoring the past, but you guys are just like, bring it on. Let's figure out how we're going to use technologies to introduce our kids to the future at the same time. As we're wrapping up, I want to give you an opportunity, because you're an experienced leader, Derek. And if you were speaking to a leader who may be stepping in as a new leader, we have listeners to the show that are aspiring leaders and veteran, but speak to that newer leader. What are some things you would tell him or her to keep in mind as they may be stepping into the work as a newer leader?
I would think that don't try to do it all yourself. Rely on your team, your people, your experts. Going into a high school setting as a first time principal, I'm thinking back 9 years ago, it's kind of a daunting task. And I remember telling myself, you're not the expert. Go to the experts, ask people's opinion, get feedback from individuals when it affects them. And that really helps you along the way. I think be visible, be present, be seen, be in your hallways as much as you can, in your classrooms, at lunch, talk to kids, talk to teachers. How's your day going? Smile. the more you can smile and be positive, I think that goes a long ways. And when you walk out of your office, people shouldn't be able to see kind of what's going on and on the bad days. And always, I think the last thing would be you're going to make mistakes. It's pivot, adjust, talk to people, learn from that, and move forward, and you'll make it the right way.
And what would you say to the veteran leader, someone that's been doing it a while? How do you stay motivated? Because, like it or not, Derek, you're a veteran now. So, what would you say to that veteran leader to stay motivated in this work?
I think always don't get too caught up in the grind of the day to day. Always try to be that grower, that learner. Go to the conferences, whether it be technology, something that you're weak at. Go present, kind of what here. Be on a podcast, do something different that you've never done, and continue to share what you're doing and learn from others. And never lose sight of your why. I think it's very important. Know what's your what's at your core, what do you believe in, and that I think helps you kind of see that star and that light and keep moving that way. And I always think as leaders we struggle too to celebrate the small things along the way, from your staff, from your students, from yourself. And those are important to do, and that really helps you kind of get to that bigger step when you celebrate the path along the way.
Oh, I love that. All right. So, Principal Matters listeners, if you're a newer leader or a veteran leader, just rewind the last 5 minutes because that was so powerful, Derek. If you want reminders of ways to stay motivated, don't do it by yourself. Remember, you're not the expert. Be visible, be present, be in your halls, be with your students, talk to kids, smile, be with your teachers, build relationships. Don't get caught up in the grind. Always find ways to stay creative and relevant, whether that's presenting the things you're learning, being on a podcast like this one, but sharing out the things you're learning and celebrating all those small wins, because man, you don't need to wait till the big win to celebrate the small wins. Derek, what a privilege to have you in the room. As we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell listeners how they can stay connected with you and any parting words of advice you'd like to share with leaders as they're trying to make a better together future for their schools.
Twitter, I try to use Twitter. It's changed a lot, I think, over the years with it. It was great to do some of those Saturday chats and some of the things along the lines there. Derek Catch 19 on Twitter, also on LinkedIn as well. I've been trying to do a little bit of work with Neurovant with some consulting with AI there. So there's a couple places. I think always, if anybody has a question and wants to email or talk, email me and I'll gladly talk or help in any way that's possible. And I think to kind of leadership, isn't about being the spotlight. It's about creating something that lasts beyond you and something that people can feel proud about as you come in. And I think that going with that better together, bringing our community together to offer more for kids and opportunities, hopefully that'll continue here and we'll keep growing with our culture and doing good things.
Well, Derek Cantrell, thank you so much for sharing your story from Alleghany High School in Covington, Virginia, of how you guys have stayed better together and for the amazing things you're doing with AI. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing, inspiring your school. And thank you for sharing today with the Principal Matters listeners. And Principal Matters listeners, thank you for learning, because what you do matters. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks.